Welcome to Modern Mystic Messages. I'm Teresa, and I thank you for stopping by and clicking on the video. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. And in any event, I'm glad you're here. Family, I got another message for us today. Now, this one is a little different than the last one I shared. This was not automatic writing per se. It was more of an intuitive writing session. I woke up this morning and honestly, well, you can tell from the title, I'm probably going to put it in there somewhere, but truthfully, it wasn't even just don't fight this, let it happen. It was like, shh, don't fight this, let it happen. Like in them creepy horror movies, very triggering, very whatever. But I understood initially that it wasn't from a danger perspective. It was talking about from the spiritual perspective. And then I remembered a scene in the series House where the little boy was afraid to take the oxygen mask or on the anesthetic mask over his face, and House kept doing it first and then putting it on his face, and he was saying that he was eating the red berries. So it kind of that scene came to mind, and then I started thinking about like hospice care or sitting with a loved one as they're ending their life and basically giving them permission to leave. And truthfully, that's kind of where I know Spirit was taking me in that message. It was like, look, stop fighting this rebirth cycle, let it happen. So I took a few minutes and did some intuitive writing. I do want to read to you because I'm reading over it as well what I came up with, and then we will pull a few cards and see what Spirit has to say. But of course, before we get into this, I do want to call in my guides: Archangel Michael, Yeshua, Archangel Raphael, Archangel Sandalphon, Archangel Metatron, Saint Germain, Thoth, as well as Inky and then Herzog. I do ask your presence here and the divine creator. Provide over this reading and message. Please allow me to be a clear channel for spirit and to be able to benefit the collective. Ashe, and so it is. So let's get in here. And I want to give a special shout out to my son, Jordan Benjamin. I'm actually probably going to add him on this video. He does have, I'm not sure if he still maintains his YouTube channel per se, but I know he has a topic here because he does music. Um, if you like rap with a conscience, you might definitely enjoy him. I highly encourage you to check it out. Um, yeah, I'm really, really proud of the work that he does as well. I mean, he isn't full time into music. He's still very much, involved. He's in the military, active duty, and so he hasn't like fully invested in music, but he's really talented and I enjoy his music. But I had decided I was gonna wait till tomorrow to get this message out. I was feeling a little tired and it gotten hot in here and every excuse in the book, yada yada. And we got to talking about some things that really weren't related to this, but in a way it was. And it really finally came down to like a loving intervention and a point of accountability. It reminded me of a couple of points that came out later in this writing, so I definitely want to shout him out. But yeah, family, like I said, for many of us, I know I've been seeing the theme of death, transformation, and rebirth for months now. Like I said, I even created a WhatsApp group with that in the title as far as an ascension group, and we're talking about it, and it's showing up over and over again, not only in my readings and other readers, and other channels on YouTube. We're in a rebirth, initiation, ascension cycle, whatever you want to call it. A lot of us are in various different stages of that, but it's not necessarily a smooth ride for everyone. I know it certainly hasn't been for me. Y'all have had to be more than a little bit patient with me, all the fits and starts, and even a lot of the issues that I don't discuss on the channel, things that I'm going through as a result of that, working through. And I mean, it's easy to blanket everything under spell work, but truthfully, there is a lot of things that we're dealing with in this season and cycle that, whether you want to admit it or not, like the scriptures tell us, we war not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities. And so I just wanted to kind of look at some of this stuff and see if it brings you some comfort or calls some things to your attention that you might need to go back and fine tune a bit in your ascension cycle and rebirth. Because, yeah. Now, I had sat here, like I said, the permission to let go. Don't fight, let it happen. This death and rebirth has been long, painful for most, not easy for any. And then it said, look back over the past 5 to 15 years. Look at what you've already come through. No, it wasn't easy. It was damn hard and traumatic for many of us. But you did it with grace. You didn't, or I'll say you did it with grace. And you know that because you don't look nothing like what you've been through. Now, take a mental look at the karmics. I ain't say you got to go back. Some of us still have them in our face. Most of us don't have them right up in our presence. But what you know of your karmic soulmates the last time you interacted with them, think about that. Most of them, the ones that took us through our paces, they look like they're wearing their karma and ours. Most of them probably not doing very well. Some of them dealing with financial issues. And not saying we don't still have those issues as well, but 9 times out of 10, if you look back after you've done some healing and gotten those people distance from you, if you look back in the situation, most of the time you are far off, far better off of the two players in any of those scenarios. Um, You see, yeah, they said they usually look like they're wearing your trauma and theirs. It's not a point of celebration. It just means that you got what you were supposed to out of the lesson and they didn't graduate. That was one of the things that I was looking at earlier on when I kept, well, I'll be honest. I don't, well, I mean, I'm always going to be honest, but I'm just saying some of the readers that I had been led to in the past, I had to peel away from. Not that I don't think there's anything wrong with their readings, but they're still reading karmic energies because there are some people, and I actually heard one of them talking about it with her collective the other week because she was kind of tired of reading that karmic energy, but her collective is still in that energy. They refuse to let it go. They don't want to. I mean, I ain't gonna say they don't want to heal, but every time she try to have a reading that's leading more towards love and light and manifesting in what you want and this and that, they're like, well, I don't this and I don't that and I don't want them. And just they're still kind of harping on what the karmic did and how they were hurt, and they sound really bitter in the comments. And I had to peel away from that because people don't realize the longer you hold on to those energies, not only does it inhibit your healing, but you're holding their feet to the fire of that as well. And who knows, you're not still dealing with them on a daily. They may be trying to heal, and your words and your angst and your anger and your unforgiveness that you're spewing out of your mouth becomes a form of spell work that can genuinely inhibit their healing as well. And I know we don't want to do that, but we got to be more aware. Now, and that's what I was saying. If you graduated from your karmic lessons enough to at least detach from those situations, or a spirit, maybe spirit had a spiritual extraction team remove you, however it goes, they're not in your face on a daily, day-to-day basis. It allowed you enough space and distance to begin to heal. That's kind of a poignant point in the larger sense of karmic soulmates because many of our karmic soulmates are soul contracts that we made before we even came here. Even though you have such a hard time with that person in this life, they may have agreed to come here and play your antagonist out of love for you in the ethers. You never know. I've heard several people say they did past life progressions or had NDEs or whatever and were shown their life plan. And sure enough, the people that had caused them the very most trauma in this life was somebody that had agreed to do that before they ever came here. And sometimes it was because in a previous life you had been involved with those people and you were the antagonist in that time. We do take turns being the good guy and the bad guy. We're not always all perfect earth angel, oh, and we're just put upon and whatever. We're working out these painful karmic lessons because we needed to learn that stuff. So if we're having a really hard time on this earth with some of the things we had to go through, it's because most likely we either dialed it up. Most of us here right now going into the age of Aquarius are not new souls on the planet. Most of us have done this before. And that means we're here going through those cycles to learn or button up soul lessons for our soul growth that for whatever reason we didn't get in the past. So we was either the bad guy we were on the wrong side of whatever. So now it was our turn to heal from those things. And or some of us agreed to come in and be the ones that would awaken and ascend in this lifetime to close out those generational cycles for our ancestors. So we really need to learn to let go of a lot of the anger around what had happened was, because truthfully a lot of what happened for us to us genuinely happened for us, even the really painful things. Um, let me see, what else did I put here? Oh, it was saying we need to reflect on our karmic lessons, especially the recurring themes. So, in this lifetime, if you had recurring cycles of the narcissist empath paradigm, or being on the wrong side of codependency, or stayed in and out of poverty all your life, or being abused inside of relationships, whichever way that goes, if that's a recurring theme in your life, look at it from a wider angle lens to see what the karmic lesson is that you need to extract from that, and see if you can um, resolve that. Because truthfully, whether you want to recognize it or not, you're going to keep replaying that until you learn it over and over and over. And that's why some of us can't get out from over the crossroads. We like wanting to have this rebirth cycle, but it keeps coming. Now let's go on and let me continue reading here. They say turn your pain into purpose. Your pain is your purpose or can show you your purpose. And that goes back to looking at the recurring themes or our major karmic lessons. For example, like I said, I do have the narcissist empath paradigm as well as codependency that I had to deal with. So, and I do realize that it is on a generational level to some degree, because I mean I was born into a family with the narcissist empath paradigm. My mother was a narcissist, my father was her supply, and they didn't physically fight, but they were at verbal fisticuffs every day. I woke to the sound of yelling and screaming in my house every single day from the age of 3 until he left the home when I was 21. No, I was 23. 22, 23, when they separated briefly, and then she was going to let him come back into the house, and he passed before, like literally the day that she was considering letting my dad come back, move back into the house. He had been out of the home for about 4 or 5, maybe 6 months, living in a little hotel down the street, or across town. And she said, well, he's better. He probably done learned his lesson. I'm thinking about letting him move back in. Well, let's face it, she was missing her supply, and she was going to let him move back in, and he had an aneurysm and passed in front of the post office the very day that she said that. So I know a little something about the narcissist paradigm, because after he passed, I became her supply. And it was, yeah, until they cut ties with me completely because of the religion thing. And then I had that abandonment issues to deal with on top of that. And then being passed off to more sociopaths and narcissists. But it was a recurring theme because I realized, one, is something I need to heal in myself from several different aspects. And it was something that I needed to learn how to truly empathize with in a healthy way, so as not to facilitate it, but also not to judge harshly those that were caught on either side of it if I'm to become a teacher. So, yeah, it happened to me, but it also happened for me. Every bit of all that stuff that I thought was super, super painful in the past, and again, I'm not saying it's not uncomfortable. I should have. I didn't even understand how badly I needed therapy, and I couldn't afford therapy by the time I did realize I needed it. When I was younger, I asked for therapy, but I had parents that were so caught up in religiosity, they handed me a Bible and told me to pray away the depression. So I've dealt with clinical depression and all that all of my life, until I had to kind of self soothe and kind of self treat a little bit. And truthfully, meditation and YouTube were the best thing that could have happened to me, because at the time I couldn't afford a therapist, but there were some licensed therapists that have kind of hung their shingle, so to speak, on YouTube and post enough good content that I could recognize some things in it enough to begin to do my shadow work and some healing as well. Now, we're taken through karmic lessons to learn how to respond rather than react. And if we're chosen ones, star seeds, light workers, etc., it's to gain experience and empathy for the karmic energies and or generational curses that the scriptures tell us the powers and principalities have unleashed onto humanity at this time. And even if, and I wrote down some of the ones that we deal with, because we want to immediately think about, when we say karmic lessons or the powers and principalities, you want to think about the male female or the relationship dynamic, as far as romantic relationships gone wrong. But it's so much bigger than that. It's things like fear, anxiety, depression, uh promiscuity, and the Jezebel spirit. That's a big one on this earth today. We're told that it's cool to go out there and, like literally, modesty and morality are frowned upon in today's climate. Um, polygamy and polyandry, and people can say whatever they will or want. There really is. We're not trying to repopulate the nation. There's no need for that. And 9 times out of 10, in theory, it sounds one way, but when we actually see it playing out around us, it's another excuse. It's another arm, if you will, of the Jezebel spirit gone wrong. There's the empath narcissist paradigm, misogyny, misandry, imbalanced feminism and masculinity. And truthfully, most of the toxic masculinity that's happening on this planet today is coming out of imbalanced females. It is not a male issue. And I'm sorry, women can get mad at me as they want to. I'm I'm getting a little long in the tooth. I've seen it long enough to know where it really does lie and where it comes from. And even with the feminist movement, it's completely imbalanced and it's driven by truly toxic masculines that are running in the background in the powers that were. They've set those psychological paradigms into place to keep us all divided, but those are part of the powers and principalities. Then there's the whole, oh, now I might get in trouble for this one, but I gotta say it. The gender confusion thing, the gender wars that we're having now. I hate to be the ones to tell y'all, but I pay attention to things and I unplugged from television back in like 1999, 2000. And then I kind of went back into it and came back towards it a little bit because Spirit led me back to kind of replug back in around 2018, well, around 2019, 2020. And then when the pandemic hit and I was living with my daughter and daughter-in-law, so I did see more television during that time period than I had been in years and started listening to what was being said. And I'm here to tell you, whether y'all realize it or not, we're on a different timeline. This whole gender war thing that literally blew up in 2020. I had never heard any of the non-binary stuff before 2019, period. And I come from a paradigm and timeline where, as far as I knew and understood, up until about 10 or 15 years ago, for sure no longer than 15, it was federally illegal for anyone under the age of, for sure, 18, but at one point it was under the age of 21 to have reassignment surgery unless there was a case of physical injury or in the case of natural hermaphroditism at birth. They, and even in those cases, doctors understood the dangers in doing those surgeries too young. They would observe the children, watch their hormone levels, do a whole lot of psychological evaluation, and typically make the reassignment surgery or the assignment surgery at a later date. They were not running 13, 14, 15-year-old children under the knife. They just weren't doing that. And then all of a sudden, in 2020, when we had all of that other stuff going on, I'm starting to hear on the news, on the commercials, on the everything, they're saying paradigm shift, paradigm shift. And then all of a sudden, we got commercials that are marketing anti-HIV, like seriously targeting a very specific portion of the LGBTQ community in a almost disrespectful way. We've got the gender wars happening in an almost disrespectful way. All of these things that are happening, we are undergoing serious glitches in the matrix, and people don't even understand that. That stuff just flat out was not a major issue before then. It's a different timeline. Then we have the, well, of course, poverty issue is always going to be a thing. With the, oh, and one of the things that I wrote down here with the gender wars, people don't realize that, but that's an imbalance of the resurgence of Ishtar and Sekhmet on the planet. Those in the temple of Sekhmet, I think they did a lot of androgyny things, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. There's just there's it's different, but when I say powers and principalities on the rise, powers and principalities on the rise, causing issues here. And of course, there's greed and gluttony, addiction, and any kind of addictions. It can be money, sex, chemicals, the matrix programming, those belief systems and paradigms that truthfully we're finding out in the information age don't really make sense, but we're still afraid to let them go. That's a huge part of the powers and principalities, belief systems, because a belief is just a thought you choose to keep thinking. We can't prove any of this stuff. You can't prove Islam, Christianity, or Judaism because ain't none of us been around here long enough to know that. And for real, The church is talking us as if it's been such a long running organization from the beginning of time. No, it ain't. Nobody on this planet had a working copy of the Bible up until 500 years ago. Nobody. Most of those texts do go back 2, 3, 4, 10,000 years, but they were not part of a Christian organization that did not exist. And even then, it was really, like I said, very, very controlled. Only the clergy could have it. They decided to interpret and tell you what they want. And here's the thing, they very hypocritically tell you do not add anything or take anything away. And yet they have spent the last 400, 500, 1,000 years deliberately and intentionally adding things and taking things away. Even the very fact that they try to somehow knit this story together to tie the Judaism, to tie Judaism to this new religion and put an Essene mystic in the middle to try to hold them all together, hold the whole story together, when he spent his entire ministry telling the people, you don't know my father, you worship your father, the devil. But let them tell it. And Christians still to this day argue tooth and nail that Yeshua was pointing people to worship Yahweh. No, he wasn't. He told them that they would not, that their prayers would go no higher than the ceiling, that they would be destroyed, that they would say that they were doing all that stuff in his name, and yet he would say, I never knew you. Get away from me, you workers of evil. You do not know my Father. You don't know my Father. If you did know my Father, you would obey him. He was telling them that, and they could not hear it. And 2,000 years later, they still can't hear it because of the powers and principalities and the belief systems. Now, I know that's a lot to work through. Like Meek Mill says, it's levels to this shit. It really is. But the lessons that we have in these rebirth cycles, they keep coming around until we learn them and we work through it a little bit. And then the next time we may have a little bit less to work through. And the next time we may have a little bit less to work through. But many of us right now are going through pivotal initiations and graduations. And that's not saying you're going to be healed forever and all time and you're at the Christic level right this minute and you're becoming an ascended master right this second. I'm not saying that, but we're healed enough. The Spirit is saying, let go, let this death and rebirth happen. Because for real, there comes a point of the shedding of the skin that we can't just baby it no more. And that's what made me think about and shout out my son, because we were talking about dietary issues. Now, I've gotten rid of a lot of the people in my life that I needed to, the really toxic people, and stop doing, like I said, stop over giving and stop letting people take advantage, and really kind of just sequestered off to myself and took some time to heal. However, in the midst of all that, I still have the food addiction, because when I was going through all of that, I developed the unfortunate habit of emotional eating. And living in America, you know what comes along with that: sugar addiction, gluten allergies, corn sensitivities, everything that comes with inflammation plus. And I can sit and make all the excuses in the world for it, and I can get people to there and sympathize with it. And thanks to the body positivity movement, they've now convinced us that we can't say nothing about it. It's wrong to fat shame people. And I'm glad people aren't just openly taunting people in the street, but they've also given people a false sense of whatever, that they won't say nothing about it until these people are 5, 6, 700 pounds or falling unalive because of their health issues, because people refuse to speak on it because we've decided that it's not politically correct to say anything about it. When you're looking at somebody literally poisoning themselves to death or dealing with an addiction to the point that it's whatever is causing this. Everybody in America that's fat ain't got no glandular issue. They can stop that nonsense. Yes, we are dealing with the poisoning of eating a whole lot of processed and junk foods, but we don't have to buy and eat processed and junk foods. And that's the part that I'm having to come to terms with. I've been doing it in fits and starts, and I'll lose weight and then fall off the wagon and gain weight back. And then I'll lose weight and then I'll fall off the wagon to the point that it literally has slowed down my metabolism. And I said it like just like that, falling off the wagon, because for real, no, I'm not falling out anywhere and digging demons out of my face and walking around looking crazy like I was on one of the more dangerous chemical addictions. But the fact of the matter is, they've proven in the laboratory sugar is more addictive than cocaine, several times more addictive. So ain't no point in me looking down at the folks that's on the D word addictions when I've got one too that's killing me slowly too. It's time to understand those things, step up to the plate, and let it happen. Spirit is saying, stop fighting this. Do whatever you need to do to get your behind out from the middle of the crossroads. You've been standing at the crossroads long enough. It's time to move. We have received marching orders and it's time to go. And if it take a little tough love or some radical steps to get over that hump to make it happen, well, we have to. We have to allow this death. It hurts, hurt like a son of a gun, and it's more than a little scary. The idea of entering that chrysalis, knowing that you're going to completely die to the old way of being, you're entering a whole new paradigm, that you're literally like the butterfly entering a chrysalis. You got to melt down to a goo and come out on the other side of that completely unrecognizable, a completely different form. That's scary as hell. But Spirit is saying we can do it. We have to die to a version of ourselves or a whole older life. We are melting into an unrecognizable goo and rebirthing to a whole new life and new version of us, especially if we're making the shift alone or with very few people coming with us. So much of the next season is unknown, but we're being asked to call on Spirit, lean heavily on our angels and ancestors and guides, and trust. We've come too far to turn back now. Well, we could, but we don't really want to do that, because once you know something, you can't unknow it. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. So we've gone through that healing process to peel away some of those layers of karmics and people and whatever. We recognize what the problem is. We don't want to go back to living that life again. And truthfully, you can't really sort of kind of. This ain't like the Matrix where old boy said he know that this is cool, but he enjoyed thinking it's a steak and he wanted to be reinserted. It doesn't really work like that in reality, especially for the chosen. When you've reached certain stages of awakening, you can attempt to fall back asleep, but it's really going to be even more uncomfortable for you this time. We don't really want to do that. So it's much better and more comfortable for us to move forward into the unknown rather than to wallow in the uncomfortable past. We're standing at the crossroads too long will get you run over. That's what I put there. And we also have to remember, I don't know why, well, I do know why. I heard something else completely, but life and death are in the power of the tongue. We have to remember that. Not only the things that we say about other people, but the things that we say to and about ourselves. Just like we can speak all of the things that we couldn't do, we can speak life to the things that we can do, are doing, are thankful for, are calling in, that we know that we have our angels and ancestors and guides with us. They are actively doing this with us. We are on this threshold and we're calling it in because we're chosen. Well, we were chosen for it and you chose to answer. You recognize that you're different. We stop calling ourselves black sheep and we understand that we are set aside to awaken and ascend in this day and time, not just because it's cute or it's cool to call ourselves that. We have a spiritual mission and duty to ourselves and humanity, and to whatever spiritual way that you understand the divine to be. And we're on it. Now, I was going to get into a reading here, but we're already at 34 minutes, almost 35. I'm going to do the reading, but I'm going to break it up into a part two and pull the cards on that one. So, thank you so much for joining me here with this one. And like I said, shh, don't fight it, let it happen. I love you so much, family. Peace and blessings to you. Be sure to join me on for the reading as well. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do so, and be sure to give the video a thumbs up. It helps it get it out to more people that can benefit from the message. And until later, take care. I love you. Namaste.